take over. Hey guys, how's your Tuesday been treating you?
Hey there, interesting Tuesday. Thank you, Scott. Hello, everybody. And I'll introduce and say hello to Chris. Hello, Chris.
Good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. Big shoes to fill with Andy today, but thanks for having me, everybody.
Yeah, all the way across the country from New York. Now, some people internally at Trade Ideas claim that Chris and I sound pretty similar, so we'll leave that up to your discerning ears as to who's really speaking over here. All right, so let's get started. Trade of the week. Here we go. Myself and Chris trade our own accounts. We're also employees of Trade Ideas, but we're not giving out financial advice. So anything you see or hear in this webinar is really just our own opinions, not to be taken literally as financial advice. That is to be reserved for people who have the brokerage license to charge fees and give out advice. We don't do that. So a lot of new users. It's been an incredible year of growth. I think everybody can see the euphoria that's coming to the market. And I'll tell you, it's we overlook sometimes here at Trade Ideas how, not daunting, but how many layers of trade ideas exist, and it's not something that can be learned overnight. So we really try hard to get people to pull up a chair and learn as best they can and shorten the learning curve to make the product do what it is you want to make it do. Could be different from the other person next to you. They might want to do something completely different, but to get the program to do what you want it to do, it doesn't come intuitively overnight. It's going to take a little bit of effort, a little bit of researching and trial and error, and we're here to help, and that's the whole point of this slide. We're doing webinars where we can try and highlight some ideas. Primarily, Barry's live trading room is the place to be. It's a free room. Free is a great price, and he's very generous with his time. If you ask a question, I mean, typically no question is going to get unanswered in his room, and so he can demonstrate in real time visually what it is you might be interested in learning and how to use Trade Ideas. So there's that. And then aside from the afternoon webinars, we have the daily support session. I think Chris will be taking over the 12 o'clock support session on Friday for Andy, but one of us jumps in and gives Barry a break at the noon hour Eastern and just kind of gives a fresh set of eyes on the market and the day's trading. But more importantly, it's there for you guys to pull up a chair and ask questions on how to use the product and let us demonstrate to you how to get what you want to get out of the product, because it can't be done over a phone call. It's best to do it in these types of environments. So if you haven't been around the noon trading sessions, support sessions that is, please come by and say hi. And there is the link down below. That's a redirect. trade-ideas.com/live will take you directly to that YouTube live stream, and you can just type in your questions and interact. All right, another week has flown by, and we'll talk again today about how human and machines are really the best team. One can't do it without the other, and I think that's very apparent when you look at how Trade Ideas is creating value for people every day in curating ideas in real time and then letting you, the human, decide how you want to manage those ideas. And so what we'll do, I forgot that we'll just kind of the same old, we'll do a market recap. We're going to look at the AI today through Chris Varley's eyes and see what he saw and thought to be notable, what Andy normally does in that segment. And then we'll come back and we'll talk about the trade of the week, which was Levi Strauss. And I've got about 3 different alerts we're going to go through. We can set some alerts. And then time permitting, of course, if you guys have any charts you want me to look at, I can give you my unbiased, unfiltered opinion on those charts. So let's get started. I do have a few things to say about this market. I'm going to get my pen and I'm going to call this the dog went to the vet cone setup, right? You see that? There's the dog and he's wearing the cone. Now, this is a megaphone. It's what people are starting to talk about, and I've kind of noticed it as well. Major megaphone. What this means is the volatility. You don't have to be a genius to see the widening candles, the opening ranges, the volatility. And there's really no reason to think that it's not going to continue that way until it either resolves itself one way or the other. And, it just seems like there's just no getting a market to sell off. NASDAQ's a different story. We'll get to that in a second. But the energy and the financials have kicked the price back into play for the S&P. A rather ugly close yesterday, kind of gave a lot back, but then a big gap up today. And then I'm going to get a little technical here. the bulls would have been nice to see a nice closing candle on highs, but we gave a lot back. And it's just so interesting that the amount we gave back is perfectly lining up with that 20-day moving average. So just like yesterday, price popped up, touched the 20-day moving average, and retreated all the way back down to the 50-day moving average. Today, gap up, traded way through the 20 average, wanted no business closing up here in clean air, wanted to make it hard, so it dropped back into the range, into this cluster of moving averages here. So, the only thing that really stands out to me is I mentioned in the noon session, it's been pretty hard for me the last few weeks to be a swing trader. When you look at those chutes and ladders and those wide candles and those closing on lows and then snapping back up and gapping up, it's been very difficult to take home risk overnight in either direction. So I've been pulling way back. I think a few other people I know have been pulling back. I've been sitting a lot more cash than normal, and I'm just kind of waiting to see what's going to happen, because this is really, really difficult for me anyway. Now, if you're a day trader and you're just on top of it and you got nothing else to do but bang out day trades, it's probably a good environment for you, but that's not me. My situation's different. I've got a lot of things to attend to each day, and I've decided that swing trading is the environment for me to just kind of slow it down. But it's hard to slow it down when we've got like a megaphone price action pattern. Again, I'll draw it one more time. It's an expanding range, kind of the exact opposite of what you want to see. I've always talked about wanting to see nice tight ranges coming in and consolidating into a point like that in time from left to right, not from right to left. All right. NASDAQ, I mentioned, believe it or not, it's much worse over there. And as of a couple days ago, we were down in 10% correction territory. So the Qs actually went through a technical correction, if you will. And it kind of corresponds here, not bad. If you look at the horizontal line, resistance, resistance, resistance became support, and yesterday's support. And I think there was also some anchored VWAP lines on there that some of the smart guys were talking about. So those lines have held. But on the flip side, we popped right up into our declining 10-day moving average, which is my momentum gauge. And what that's been telling me the last few weeks, pop up to the 10, sell off, pop up to the 10. Where do we go from here? So the NASDAQ has been kind of the leadership on the way up. It's been the leadership on the way down in the volatility. Nothing like we've seen in the NASDAQ has shown up in the S&P. But it was not lost on me, is what I'm getting at here, that today the price action closed back below. So, in order for the NASDAQ to get back on board, this is going to have to really flatten out. We're going to have a bunch of closes above that 10-day moving average to kind of build support again before I get excited about trying to look for longs. Again, I'm on the sidelines in cash right now. All right, let's take a look at some of the other things real quick. Apple has been a good bellwether for the NASDAQ. Same thing in Apple, can't get back above that 10-period moving average. I know Tesla had a good rebound today. Oh, Tesla defied the odds over there and posted a close above the declining 10-day moving average. So a little raise a green flag for the bulls here on that one, in that big name for sure. But I think the big takeaway is here, volatility is here to stay. It's not going away, especially when we consider that megaphone pattern that we've got here on the NASDAQ. Volatility just seems to be increasing, if anything. So I'm going to wait and see how things set up, and we'll talk about how that affected me also on the trade of the week when we get to that point. Yes, the cone of shame, David, the dog cone. So that's it for the market recap. I don't think there's really much else to kind of focus on. The small caps, look at that. Actually, the Russell 2000 is up here in clean air. It actually did close above. Oh, yes, and the Dow. A lot of people have been talking about the Dow. You normally don't talk about the Dow, the old grandfather's index of just a handful of industrials, but this, I think, and Andy touched on it last week, is kind of indicative of the rotation out of tech and into conglomerate staples, utilities, dividend paying, simple grandpa type stuff. So there is a rotation going on, and it certainly has been difficult to be long tech the last few weeks, but we'll see how the rotation goes and where the ball rolls to next. All right, this is normally where I would bring in Andy and see what he's got to say. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch the screen for Chris. I will, let's see, change presenter, and it'll pop up on his screen there in a second. I think that's what it's trying. There we go. All right, Chris is now been designated as presenter. So yeah, go ahead and take yourself off mute and let us know what you think is going on over there on your desktop.
All right. Do we have the right screen for me here?
Yep. I got your trade ideas screen up.
All right. So if you got eyes on me now here, the first chart I was going to bring up is apps. And just kind of going along with that theme that Steve was just talking about that rotation from tech to kind of that bellwether of the Dow or the diamonds there. We look, and the Qs had a big bounce today. And if you look at what Holly did today, we start right here with apps and we have the NASDAQ. And if we look at Mark, we have the NASDAQ. And if we look at MBio, which didn't do a whole lot, but all the same, we have the NASDAQ. I excluded INOV, even though it as well as the NASDAQ, just because it had some news to it, and that was the big catalyst for that. But, you know, I have a static chart of the Qs up here, and we can see that, you know, from this gap up here, and we held that 8 EMA, which is what I kind of like to look at. I know Steve and them like the 10 SMA, but, you know, whatever works for you. You know, it really worked the whole day, and we could see that as we tailed off here at the end, so did some of these trades here. So, you know, going back with that whole kind of volatility thing, it's exactly what we are looking at here. And the same as Steve and some of the other guys, I've more moved to cash. I'm more of a swing trader like them. I've kind of more scalped things out intraday. And that same kind of theme seems to have held well with Holly on the day here as well. We'll bring it back to look at apps here. And you can see it was strong all day long off that entry here. She got it kind of early in the day, I think just before 10, 9:52 my time on the East Coast in New York. And it really just kind of held with the exception of one little pullback here. And we can see it really kind of coincides with exactly what the Qs were doing here. So, you know, she didn't have, you know, Holly didn't have anything special on that there was any news or anything. So it was really just riding with what the rest of the market was doing. And we could see, you know, looking at these charts here, this is a 15-minute here, but we could see this big downturn here over the days, followed suit. We get the gap up and bounce today. We get the gap up and bounce today. So it's just one of the ways when people ask us, you know, how do you use Holly, or what's a good way to use Holly, or is she only good for intraday or only good for swing trading? Well, use her as a bellwether for what's going on. You could see where her bias was, and we could see that the NASDAQ was where a lot of the action was on that big bounce today, tech maybe being a little overdone the last few days. And so we found that bounce in that today. And the same kind of concept would apply as far as the flip side of it here. We had CLF. She is unbiased. She's not looking at any news. You know, we have news. Maybe there's infrastructure coming. Maybe there isn't infrastructure coming. Who's going to get what contracts? But for whatever reason, she was seeing that this was probably running into some averages here on the daily chart, and she called it on the wrong side here. So it was just an update for the market overall, and it's a way to look at to say, first off, she's fired long to the bias here, as we can see on all those trades. Looking more long than short, and on those couple of shorts that just didn't really have anything going for it on those, so it wasn't a fight the market kind of day.
Which moving average are you using over there, Chris, on the 15-minute chart?
I use the blue one is a 20 SMA and the red is a 8 EMA.
Okay, so on that 8 EMA, that would be the closest to what I talk about on my 10 EMA. And I talk all the time about, you know, the value in the AI is in the entry. The better manager of the trade is the human being. That's the man and the human machine together. And you know, if I was short this trade and I was looked up and I saw that stop was way up there at that level, but boy, this thing was just grinding along that moving average, probably would have cut that a lot sooner. I've been teaching people to try and use either a 10 or like he's using there an 8 EMA and make that your risk. If it's not working, I mean, you're welcome, of course, to use the Holly exits that are suggested, but I find that, you know, I think there's a little bit better management if you're able to kind of use some of that against you and not have to ride that CLF all the way up. Am I making sense there, Chris? You know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, absolutely. 100%, absolutely. It's why they become suggested, these stops, you know, and it's not a guarantee for anything one way or the other. And, you know, we can see here that on her conservative reason, she exited it for a reduced risk here. showing that, look, the trade wasn't
That
working,
was,
so it's
yeah.
time to make an exit now before it gets worse for us, essentially. So, having that man and machine combination, she's sitting there unbiased. It doesn't matter to her what the news is, or what anybody else is thinking, or what other talking heads are saying. This is what we see from her. This was the data that was coming in. She tried some shorts, they didn't work. She got out of them early for a reason, and that's what we saw from her, essentially. I do want to, give another one hat tip here to this INVO. Just an outstanding exit. She got it early, and before she had got it, it wasn't out of control yet. It was something that I think anybody was watching the pre-market, you already saw that it had that big move from change from close in the pre-market, and it was really off to the races from there. And she made that entry. It wasn't very long afterwards it gave that halt, but you probably had, if you were looking at that chart and you liked it, you probably had about a solid 2 minutes before that halt came in on her, and just an outstanding trade there, and there was no pain in it for the rest of the day if you got that in and got it early. So I'll leave it at that on the comments for Holly, and
Sure.
I will pass it back to you, Steve.
All right, thank you very much, Chris. Thanks for filling in there for Andy. I'll take it back here. All right. Yeah, that CLF was confounding. I was actually swing trading that back here, and when I didn't take it into earnings, thank God, but it's just tale of two tapes between X and CLF over there. But what we're going to talk about is the trade of the week, and it was LEVI. And I've got a few things I'd like to say. I do see, who is it? Peter had a good question. He said, at what point do we not consider it a chase if it doesn't come up and underneath and through the trigger like a normal trigger? And for those of you who've been attending my webinar last few weeks, I believe this is probably 4 out of the 5 weeks now that the trade of the week has gapped up prior to, well, I should say gapped up in, let's take a look at pre-market actually, but it's basically gapped up over and above our trigger point. So we were basically waiting for the price to come back and either hit the trigger point, or more importantly, what I've been talking mostly about all the last few weeks is waiting for that 10-period moving average. But quickly, and I know Barry called this to my attention, I'm going to draw a line. There it is right there. There's our trigger point. I'll use that markup. My point is, if you get the, I'm afraid to say it, but the trade of the week might start be getting some pre-market juice here. And if you have access to pre-market, you could take your entry in pre-market. The problem was it continued in pre-market all the way up to there, and it never really, let's turn pre-market off so we can see a little clearer now. The problem is it never really came back to touch that orange line, which again was our entry point. So what I had said over the last couple of weeks was, let's revisit what I talked about. Okay, there's our gap up. Here comes our 10-period moving average. And ideally, if we can get a point in time during the day when that candle touches the 10-period moving average, hopefully as close to, if not, right near the original entry called out, that's our golden entry that we can make an adjustment on, an audible, since the price gapped above our trigger. But if we go back to reality, and I was watching this, now I'm going to qualify this, you guys. You kind of heard my intro there. I don't have a lot of positions, hardly at all. And so I did not participate in this trade of the week simply because, personally, I didn't feel comfortable about the backdrop. But I felt comfortable calling this, and I'll show you why I did in a second. But back to the entry here, what do we do? Okay, so at this point, this thing kind of took off and never really gave us a touch. We never got a touch, Peter. So I think, the way Chris typed to you, I think Chris is right. In this particular case, jumping up and grabbing at these levels might be considered a chase. We wanted our price down here at 25.25. You could have got it if you were on the ball pre-market, if you have access to that stuff. Otherwise, it never really came back. It got as low as 24.37, but that happens quick. And I wouldn't expect anybody to grab that price and be perfect. You don't know what's going to happen. Oh, look at this. We do get our touch, but our touch is just way too late in the day. It's literally almost 50 cents higher than the original call. And so how much meat is left on the bone at that time? There's a great example, you guys, of my 10-period moving average pushing the price back in, confirming momentum, and then it breaks. And then if you took this price, you've only got really 10 cents before it broke, and you're like, well, now what? Oh, now I'm underwater. Why did I chase this thing? You know, so there we go. It finished on, I can finish it. It's just kind of gone sideways. It looks okay on the daily, but you had to have been in really to participate in most of this because it mostly happened on the gap. So I don't know why my calls are gapping so much as they are. Maybe they're getting more popular, but again, this is another week that we had a chance to discuss what to do when that happens, and at what point does it really become a chase. And I would agree with Chris's earlier synopsis there that he wrote out. This would have been a chase to try and come up here and grab these prices. You're really not in the money. Now, what I want to say to the fact that, you know, okay, Steve, well, why are you calling trade of the weeks if you're not bullish? Well, that's just me. I just chose not really to participate in any longs coming into the weekend. But I think I've talked about this before. When I see a chart that's doing this, and it's doing this consolidation, and it's almost, it reminds me of a train trying to leave the station. It never really gives a decent pullback. It never really gives a definitive sideways move. It just kind of looks to see if you're looking so it can kind of get a run on you and then take off. Some people call that an ascending wedge, an ascending triangle. It's just a look that I think you guys could imprint on. And, you know, going into the weekend, we did not look that great. Remember, the NASDAQ, we're going to look at that in a second, by the way. There we go. That was the day we had a big break and then a bounce back up. You know, going back to Levi, this is what I had to look at. And that's a pretty good looking, nice volume bar too there on the weekend, Friday going into the weekend. So typically, if I'm bullish and I see this, this is about as bullish as I mean, it's barely even a consolidation. It's almost like a trend. It's like a trend that tried to consolidate, but it was just too strong and it couldn't. So I've affectionately coined that term over the years, the train is leaving the station setup. And I felt comfortable at least calling that for people who were bullish and wanted to participate. It's just that we got the damn gap up once again. So be as it may, that's what we got. Any questions? Let's see. Okay, so Gain has a question. Pre-market, is it possible to get that ticket maybe Sunday night? No. Scott's listening. Scott's in charge of the when to fire the email button. But I think typically that email goes out at 8:30 Eastern, 5:30 Pacific, and it still gives a lot of time for people to hopefully get in. I can discuss with Scott maybe getting it out there a half an hour earlier, just for the reason you bring up, maybe a bit more pre-market activity or opportunity, I should say. How is the trade advertised before it's called trade of the week? I'm not really sure. Understand the potential, so we know of the potentials. Yes, I mean, Michael, there is an email, and the email looks something like this. Okay, it's called out in this fashion. It comes out in an email, and you get a price chart, what it looks like, the reasoning behind, and things like that. How do I backtest an alert with today's data? You don't. You have to wait for tonight's overnight system to run, Mr. Yoru. You have to wait for that to run because it's not in the hopper yet for the back tester to work off of. It's going to take an overnight run to get today's data in there. All right, so that is the portion, the segment, if you will, that I call the trade of the week. Let's see, I think Levi started to gap up at the same time. Email. Yeah, Randy's thing, it might have been about the same thing. How to receive the trade of the week. Scott, I will have Chris send you a link for how to get the trade of the week emails. And Arnish, yes, we will have a recording of this webinar up on our YouTube channel tomorrow. All right, so what I want to do is go forward here a little bit. What did I actually kind of call it out as? You know, setting alerts, but we're going to go off of 3 different scans here. I've been seeing a couple of interesting things. First thing I want to do, and this is an old scan that was called the washout bounce, and I pulled this out on over the weekend looking for possible, you know, trade of the weeks. And what I've got set up right here, right now, is I have the history. I have the history of this particular washout bounce for Friday. So as I go through and click on these, notice on the daily chart here where the arrow is. The arrow is giving me this particular day. And so what we're going to see are 2 days, Monday and Tuesday, subsequent this alert. And I just want to kind of see if there's anything interesting in there, just for my own edification, to see how many of these things actually did bounce. All right, there's another nice bounce. And of course, I will share all 3 of these alerts But as you can see, guys, this particular scan is looking for ideas that kind of put in that that bottoming candle. TME, that one's even more pronounced there. So for the most part, SDC, Smile Direct Club, you know, this scan kind of looks for those washout candles, as it's titled Washout Bounce. And I just wanted to go through and just revisit this 2 days later and just kind of see how these things are looking. Are they bouncing as a whole? Are they giving people some actual alpha off of these? And the SDC again. RVNC, that was an old trade of the week. That one didn't seem to work as well. What else do we have on here? Ah, that was a nice one. So a lot of these stocks have moved higher since that bottoming pin candle you can see there. All right, there's no real alerts that I do want to set off this, but I'm gonna set some alerts off the other two. That one doesn't look bad, but it's still under pressure. All right, yeah, we've already done that one. So I'm gonna pop, I'll just leave it on history. Actually, no, I'll take it off history and we'll put it back in real time. And for anybody that's ever wanted something that's looking for, you know, washout candles or, you know, long trending tailing, bottoming tails as they call them, might find some of that on here. So we'll save and share that. And I drop these in the chat window, not the questions window. Washout bounce. All right, there's the cloud code for that one. Joseph, it's not helping me. I was just curious to see how many of those worked. Just to go back to see, does that bottoming tail really produce things that kind of bounce higher off of them? Just a quick little visual scan there. All right, the second one is one I've talked a lot about lately. It's the jam down buy to the 10 SMA, which is essentially the same kind of stuff as the A table, but in alert format, meaning there's an event. And in this case, the event is a new low right at the 10-day moving average. And the only stocks that are going to come through here are ones that have a pretty decent score. And so this one was kind of cool. And we might set some alerts off of this one. We'll see if there's anything we like. But I want to just show people again how much value is in this alert sometimes when it works. Okay, let's wait for that to unfreeze. My system's getting all frozen on me. Sometimes that happens when the webinar starts up. Here we go. All right, first one of the day. And again, imprint on the arrow and look over here on the daily chart. So it basically gave us a new low right at the 10-day moving average. You look at that one, a nice one there on UAL, bounced right back up into play. And this one, I like this. We're gonna mark this one up as one of our price alerts that I will hand out. I like the way that one looks right there. Big washout tail as well. But what's, again, so unique about this one, look at this save, came through at 3610. 3610 is pretty much right about there. Not a bad alert. So I like these, and I only allow them to come through in like the first hour of trading. After that, for the rest of the day, I don't want to see them, because typically these strong charts, the algorithms jam down in the opening hour of trading, and then they typically bounce right back up pretty nicely. So again, I'm looking again for some additional alerts to set here. If I see something I like, another nice one. I like this one too. I like that one a lot. So I'm going to set an alert right there. And again, let's take a look at this one. Another one. This is a beauty. Boy, right on the open. Look at that blue arrow. It gave us 35.48. Wow. Right down there, pretty much near the low of that green candle. And for the rest of the day, that one worked pretty darn nice. But again, I'm going to go through and just look for anything that might be consolidating that I like. KSS Coles, that looks interesting. I like the consolidation. Let's put a price alert above that one. And again, some people like this because it's giving you a real-time alert in real time. All these airlines look the same. Looks like they want to move higher. Jets, that's an ETF of the airlines, but we had UAL in there. XHR, another ET. No, that's not an ETF. Interesting. That doesn't look bad though. Hotels, huh? Interesting. Rental cars, hotels, airlines are starting to come back to life. Financials as well too. That's not bad either. I'm going to hold off on that one. CTB, Met, more banks. More banks. Caterpillar. Another bank, H-Ban. Yeah, I haven't seen that name in a while. Oop, that's a $300 stock. That's pretty big. Let's see if anything else just catches my eye here. That one looks like it's rolling over. Yeah, that one too. Looked like some of these energy names are kind of rolling over. They were looking good earlier. So only a couple names from that one. So I'll put this one back on real time. Oops. And I'll share this one out as well. And we got a couple of decent alerts from that one. How are we doing? All right. And then lastly, I'm going to go through the A table, the one that we usually get most of our swing trades through, and just see if anything catches our eye. There'll be a lot of passes, but we might like a couple. And right off the bat, I like this one. Primarily, I'm going to give it a lot of weighting because weighting, as in heaviness, not as in time weight. The weighting of this went to the top because the short float is 45.7% AMCX. Oh, AMC Networks, our friends AMC. This is probably running along with AMC, but regardless, it's a nice looking chart. I actually saw that on Friday, and I thought if it had touched that 10-period moving average, it could have had traded week potential. But I still think this thing could squeeze higher. Might not be a bad idea to put alert on that one. And then Discovery A, I've been using this as an example a lot. This was almost the trade of the week last week, right there. That was just a beautiful look. And if you look at Discovery A, even back here, it gave us that opportunity again. The nice push higher, the consolidation sideways, it catches the 10-day moving average and just pushes it back into play. So that's what I like to look for. So let's see if we can find any more of those. Nope. That's not bad. I'll consider that sideways consolidation, and we'll put an alert up at the top of that. And again, the ones that are at the, that's almost that train leaving the station look it has about it, like I was just talking about, but still a lot of space up there. I'm going to pass on that. Let's see what else. That's an old trade of the week, and it's gotten extremely volatile. I'm just looking for nice and neat consolidation. The cake didn't look bad, but I'm going to pass. See, that thing is just screaming, don't buy me, wait for a pullback. It's big topping tail. You wouldn't want to enter something that looks like that, in my opinion. Macy's, I know Michael's along Macy's. That's a nice breakout of a little consolidation there. But again, I'm looking for consolidation. Save. There's another airline, and I'm going to just go ahead and continue on the airline theme. I really think, guys, tomorrow you might want to jot that down, airlines, because if they start moving to highs quickly, they might be in play all day tomorrow. So there's another airline for us. Let's see what else do we have here. Nope, don't chase that. That's just too extended. That looks very much like Macy's for whatever reason. Fossil Group. And we're getting to the bottom of the barrel down here. See if anything else catches our eye. At least we have a couple that we can label. There's our friend Levi's. Nope, it looks like that's about it. So let's see how many we were able to collect out of those 2 or 3 alerts we got. Oh, not too bad. So what I'm going to do next, and now as I do this, you guys, we'll enter into our final segment here for 6 or 7 minutes. We can take a look at anything you want to look at in terms of charts. You can just type them in the questions box, and I'll start taking a look at them. And as I said, I'll give you the unbiased opinion. But here is our price alerts for the day. And we'll drop those into the chat window. All right, here they come. Gabriel starting right off with the big one, Amazon. Before I do that, yeah, good. The biggest difference between the A table and the A table junior, nothing, only price. If I go to configure, the A table junior pretty much stops at $25. So that's the only difference. which reminds me some of you might not have the A-table senior, which will go up to any price. So we'll save and share that one too, and then I'll get to your stock charts here in a second. All right, so Amazon was first I saw, Gabriel. All right, let's take a look at what Amazon looks like. Definitely a bellwether of the NASDAQ. Amazon, interestingly enough, gave away its 200-day moving average after sideways action for a very long time. I'm going to sit here, I'm going to say Amazon is currently under pressure. It's literally under almost all of its moving averages. It barely closed above its 10, but it's got a lot of work to do. So we'll just leave it at that. You know, sideways for a long time. It didn't resolve itself higher. It resolved itself by breaking down through the averages. So not exactly strong there on Amazon. If I have a chance, can I quickly show how to change a multi-header to add a strategy type? How to change a multi-chart header to add a strategy type. I don't know if I'm missing that question. Multi-chart header to add a strategy type. I'm sorry, Joseph, I don't understand, but you can always email us info@trade-ideas.com with more detail, and we can get back to you on that. Sorry, I didn't understand it. Oh, symbol time and price. Oh, if you're talking about up top, try turning on your crosshairs. Properties, show crosshairs, and see if that does it. See if that helps, Joseph. All right, back to the charts. VFF. Very nice trend, really nice bottoming tail below the 50. Looks good. I mean, in the bigger picture of things, it's trying to dig in there. It needs to build on top of that. We don't want to see this roll back over and lose the 50. Once the stock loses the 50, I think its health starts to deteriorate. Same person also asked about SLGG. This thing got way ahead of itself. Super League Gaming, huh? Interesting. So this thing is now in play. All I would say is if it's going to continue to stay in play, it's going to continue to stay above that moving average right there. If it starts to close below and bleed back down, be wary of that. Sometimes these things can be one-hit wonders like that. CNK, very nice trend, and hey, wouldn't you know it, we marked that one up. So Corey, I think we're good on that one. We're going to anticipate a nice breakout, hopefully, on that one. SOS, also kind of a trying not to be a one and done, one-hit wonder, trying to get back above these moving averages, but it's got a little bit of work to do. Hopefully it stays above that rising 50 as well. Interesting. CSX, yeah, the old CSX rail. Not seeing a whole lot there. If anything, I'm seeing kind of an ominous, what they all call kind of a head and shoulders. If this doesn't resolve itself quickly, then it's going to look like a big head and shoulders there. What's after CNX, CSX, Jemiah? Broke through all its moving averages and kind of found support here at that level from this prior level of support. Again, it's coming right smack into meet its downtrending 10-period moving average, so I anticipate sellers there. It's got work, it's got a little work to do. I prefer to see stocks like this when they look like that. That is when Jemiah looked awesome. Did a little couple things since then. Held some AYTU for a while, and think I'll just get rid of it if I notice anything exciting. I don't notice anything exciting at all. The only thing exciting is if you want to stay with it and see how many days you can keep it above its moving averages, then great. But the minute it breaks back down into those moving averages and closes below them, it doesn't look good anymore. I'm not saying it looks good now. It's trying to do something, but where it goes from there. Okay, LINE for Joseph. Why is that? Is it L? Okay, so that's not a stock. NVIDIA or NVTA, I'm sorry, NVTA. Broke its 200-day, but it looks kind of like Amazon did, same kind of a thing. And geez, in hindsight, head and shoulders really do become kind of evident. You get a higher high, then a lower high, and then it all just kind of breaks down. It doesn't look great in that one, I got to say. Big crossroads right here. 200-day moving average, 10-period. See how it resolves there. CVS, and then Bed Bath & Beyond. CVS, nothing really special. It's making lower highs for the most part. If today was a high, then you've got, the third lower high. I would just call that a minor trend, though. Minor trends can be broken back out of, and nothing wrong with it. It's just kind of hanging out up there. Bed Bath & Beyond. Now remember, retail's been really kind of coming back to life. Bed Bath & Beyond also was part of the GameStop short squeeze play that we all saw there. So, AMC, Game, some of these are trying to come back to life. I think that's probably what you're seeing in the Bed Bath & Beyond. Kind of gave a lot of it back there on the close. CNP, we'll do a few more, then we'll bring Scott in. Still under a lot of pressure under that one. You got to get back above that blue line, that 50-day moving average. If you can and hold a few days above that, that would be a good thing. All right, WH. Nice trending stock, making higher lows. It just peaked above that high, and it might look for some consolidation, but it was more interesting down here off of these two bottoming days, if you were so inclined. But again, another hotel stock, these rental cars, hotels, airlines, they're coming to life. I think they're seeing states opening up, and people are maybe thinking it's time to get a jump on some of these names. WPG, definitely a downtrend. Not a whole lot of good I can say about that one. Had some bad news, obviously. Hope for the best. Get back above that 200-day moving average for a good start. All right, so we'll do FSLV, a couple more CHPT, and then we'll be done after CHPT. So we got enough stocks to work on here now. So give me a couple more. What are your thoughts on FSLV? Oh, FSLY. Oh, and of course I froze again.
Might not be you. I've been slow behind you loading the charts, looking at them with you.
It's definitely me. It's this issue I've got on this computer, and I don't know what's going to change. You can see it's just all backed up. My memory is probably bad. I could upgrade my memory. Another one that's really under pressure there, that fast fly. Need to get back above that moving average and start posting some closes. All right, 4 more, and then we're going to bring in Scott. That's a nice looking chart, Marathon Oil, but I did notice there was some give back in some of the oil. It's been a nice trend. It's been a nice run. It almost doubled. If it can't hold that 10-day moving average in Marathon, you're going to want to get out. I think you got another oil gas for me. Again, that's a nice pullback. That candle today needs to hold to get back up in the trend line. And then Sunoco, another oil name, that one dropping into the range here. I'm just going to say, not looking at these charts, apart from some of the other scans I was looking at today, AR and RRC and some of the other energy names, look like they started to get a little weak today. So just keep an eye on that as a sector. Last one, and then we'll bring in Scott for some final announcements here at Quartertel. CHPT. What does this one look like? New issue. So there's not a lot to go on. We don't even have a 10-period moving average yet. Charge point holdings. You got to go to the profile. What do they do? A charging network, EV. Okay. So if the EV names want to come back to life, then this thing might be something to keep an eye on. But a lot of the names that have been out there recently that were some of the darlings, they're not really recovering that well. So that sector space, if it can get hot again, I don't know. Sometimes sectors have a hard time getting reheated after they've been heated once already, and that is certainly the case in the EVs. But so goes Tesla, so goes the EVs. That's what I can say on that. All right, Scott, I'm pretty much talked out, so I'll bring up my slideshow for you to walk them out.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Chris. Yeah, on the way out, just make sure you've already got our ebook about earnings. TradeIdeas.com/earnings is the place to go to get it. It's free, and it has some handy cloud links. You can just go ahead and add to your layout and make those lessons useful right away. We've also got a podcast. Go to any podcast app and search Trade Ideas Podcast. You'll find us. Add us as a subscription. Download the latest episode. And stay tuned for the next one. The subscription will get you updated on the next one as soon as it comes out. There's also some great interviews that Sean has had with some interesting characters, and we released those in the last few months. There's a promo code opportunity, 15% off your first month or year of any upgrade or new subscription to Trade Ideas. So make use that code before we expire it. Just use it. Opportunities, 15%. You can find Steve Gomez on Twitter at TodayTrader. Also find us at Trade Ideas and send all your questions to info@tradeideas.com. Goes into our help desk, gets you the fastest support. And also on Facebook, we're Trade Ideas Pro, so find us on there and like us and share our stuff with all your friends. The recording of this will be up later on tonight or tomorrow on YouTube. We'll send you an email reminder from GoToWebinar tomorrow with a link to the playlist. So thanks, everyone. Thanks, Chris and Steve. Have a nice rest of your Tuesday.
All right. See you guys next time.
Thanks, everyone. See you Thursday.